Welcome back to Billionaire Success Lessons. Today, I want to share the story of a man who proved that sometimes the biggest businesses in the world begin with a very simple idea, a small room, and a mindset that refuses to accept the way things have always been done. This is the story of Michael Dell, a man who did not wait for permission, did not wait for the perfect moment, did not wait until he felt fully ready. He saw a problem, believed there had to be a better way, and decided to build the answer himself. What followed was not a smooth road. It was filled with risk, doubt, pressure, fierce competition, painful lessons, and moments when the future of everything he had built seemed uncertain. But through discipline, vision, and an unusual ability to stay focused on the customer, Michael Dell turned a college dorm room business into one of the most recognizable technology companies in the world. What makes Michael Dell's story so powerful is that it is not just about becoming rich. It is about seeing clearly when others are comfortable staying blind. It is about acting early when other people hesitate. It is about being willing to start small, learn fast, fail honestly, and keep moving. And perhaps most importantly, it is about understanding that real success does not come from copying the system. It comes from improving it. Michael Dell was born in Houston, Texas, into a family that valued education, hard work, and achievement. From a young age, he showed signs that he thought differently from the people around him. He was curious, highly independent, and always looking for more efficient ways to do things. Some children simply follow instructions. Michael Dell wanted to understand the structure behind the instructions, how it could work better, and whether there was a smarter path from point A to point B. That way of thinking would later define his entire career. Even as a boy, he was drawn to business and numbers. Money. He was interested in the logic of making money. He wanted to understand systems. He wanted to understand value. He wanted to understand what caused one opportunity to grow while another disappeared. While many young people were just trying to get through the day, Michael Dell was already experimenting with how the world worked. He delivered newspapers and quickly found ways to improve his earnings by studying customer data and targeting likely subscribers. That detail may sound small, but it reveals something big. Long before he built a technology empire, he was already paying attention to patterns, efficiency, and behavior. He was already training himself to think like an entrepreneur. As he grew older, his interest in technology deepened. Personal computers were still a relatively new and exciting frontier. To many people, computers looked complicated, but to Michael Dell, they looked full of possibility. He did not see a finished product. He saw parts, structure, customization. He saw something that could be improved. He saw an industry that was growing quickly but was still not serving customers in the best possible way. His path looked more traditional on the surface. He enrolled as a pre-med student, a direction that of a stable and respected the expectations, but inside another future was already calling him. While many students were focused only on lectures, exams, and campus life, Michael Dell was becoming increasingly fascinated by personal computers, where they were being sold. He noticed that computers often cost more than they should. He noticed that customers were paying for retail layers and inefficiencies that added price without adding much value. He noticed that many buyers wanted machines that fit their specific needs, not just whatever happened to be sitting on a shelf. That insight changed everything. In his dorm room, Michael Dell began upgrading personal computers and selling them directly to customers. It was not glamorous. It was not backed by a giant investor. It was not announced with headlines or applause. It was simply a young man testing a better way. He bought components, assembled systems, improved machines, and sold them straight to the people who wanted them. By cutting out the middleman, he could offer better value. By listening closely to customer needs, he could offer better service. By staying lean, he could move faster than traditional companies that were stuck inside old structures. This is one of the first great lessons in Michael Dell's journey. He did not begin with scale. He began with clarity. He saw something broken, and instead of complaining about it, he built around it. That is where so many success stories truly begin. Not with money, not with fame, not with certainty. They begin with a simple but powerful realization: there is a better way to do this. As his small business started growing, it became harder to treat like a side project. The demand was real. The opportunity was growing. The business had momentum. And soon, Michael Dell faced a decision that many ambitious people eventually face. Do you continue on the safe path, the path people understand and approve of? Or do you fully commit to the thing that feels uncertain but deeply alive? It was not an easy choice. Leaving behind a traditional road means leaving behind predictability, and predictability makes other people feel comfortable. But Michael Dell understood that opportunity sometimes has a short window. If you hesitate too long, the moment passes. So he made a bold decision. He left college to focus on the business full time. That decision would shape the rest of his life. The company became PCs Limited, and later Dell Computer Corporation. What began in a dorm room started turning into a real enterprise. But this part of the story matters. Growth did not remove pressure. In many ways, growth multiplied it. It is one thing to build a product. It is another thing to build a company. A growing company needs systems, hiring, logistics, supply chains, cash flow management, customer support, adaptation. The larger the opportunity becomes, the more disciplined the founder must become. Michael Dell was no longer just a smart young seller of customized computers. He had to become an operator. He had to learn how to build an organization that could survive success. And that is one reason his story is so meaningful. Some people have ideas. Some people have hustle. But to build something lasting, you need more than excitement. You need the willingness to solve problem after problem after problem, often while new problems are arriving faster than the old ones can be closed. Michael Dell had to grow not only his business but also himself. Dell's direct-to-consumer model became one advantages in the technology world. While many companies depended heavily on retail stores and indirect distribution, built a business around selling directly to customers. From buyers, customize systems more efficiently, reduce unnecessary costs, and manage inventory. That last part was especially important. In the computer business, inventory can. Technology changes quickly. What is valuable today may lose value holding tomorrow. Too much stock can destroy profits. Michael Dell understood this. He built Dell around speed, efficiency, and responsiveness. That gave the company power. Dell was not merely selling computers. It was changing how computers were sold. As the years passed, Dell grew rapidly. Revenue increased. The brand became stronger. The company expanded beyond individual buyers and moved deeper into business and enterprise customers. Michael Dell was no longer a college dropout with a dorm room business. He was becoming one of the most important entrepreneurs in the technology industry. But success at that level brings a different kind of challenge. Once people notice you, they study you. Once you grow, competitors react. Once you lead, the pressure to keep leading becomes relentless. Major companies were fighting for dominance in a market that moved at incredible speed. Customer expectations were rising. Innovation cycles were tight. Margins were under pressure. New players kept entering the field. And when a company becomes successful, even small mistakes can become expensive. Michael Dell had to lead through all of this. He had to keep the business sharp while the world around it kept changing. There's an important truth here for anyone chasing a meaningful goal. The first struggle is getting started. The second struggle is staying alive. The third struggle is staying relevant. Many people never realize that success creates its own battle. The world rewards you for winning, but then immediately expects you to again. Michael Dell lived inside that reality for years. Through the 1990s, Dell became one of the giants of the PC era. The company's growth reflected the strength of its model and the discipline of its execution. Michael Dell became known not only as a founder, but as a serious business leader with a sharp understanding of operations and customer value. He showed that you did not need to begin with a flashy invention to build something massive. Sometimes the path to greatness is not. Sometimes it is rethinking the way an existing category works, then executing with extraordinary consistency. But no great business journey is free from setbacks. As technology evolved, the market changed. New devices emerged. Consumer habits shifted. Competition intensified. Dell, like many established companies, faced difficult periods. There were years when the company struggled to move as quickly as the changing tech world demanded. Critics began to question whether Dell had the very company that had once disrupted an industry now had to face the uncomfortable possibility of being disrupted. This is one of the most human parts of Michael Dell's story. It is easy to admire someone when the line is rising. It is much harder to study them when the line bends, slows, or drops. But that is often where the real character of a leader is revealed. Michael Dell did not walk away when things became difficult. He did not pretend that the old formula would always be enough. He did not cling blindly to the past just because it had once worked. He understood that leadership sometimes means rebuilding in public. It means accepting criticism, rethinking assumptions. Everyone else agrees with them. Before one of the most dramatic chapters in his career came when he made the decision to take Dell private in 2013. This was not a small move. It was a major high-stakes bet. Short-term pressure. Every quarter becomes a scoreboard. Every temporary weakness becomes a headline. Every long-term investment can be attacked. Does not produce immediate results. Michael Dell believed the company needed the freedom to transform without being trapped by that quarterly microscope. So he fought to take Dell private, a move that required conviction, negotiation, and the willingness to stand firm through controversy. That moment says so much about the kind of leader he became. The younger Michael Dell had challenged the retail model. The older Michael Dell was now challenging Wall Street's short-term rhythm. In both cases, the core principle was the build for what matters most, not just for looks good in the moment. Taking Dell private was not easy. It was heavily debated. It faced resistance. There were powerful voices on every side. But Michael Dell stayed committed to the idea that transformation required room, patience, and control. That decision became one of the most important turning points in the company's history. It allowed Dell to think longer, move deeper into enterprise solutions, position itself for a broader future beyond traditional personal computers. Then came another bold chapter, the acquisition of EMC. This was one of the largest technology. Once again, that Michael Dell was not interested in thinking small. He understood that the future of technology was not just about hardware sitting on desks. It was about infrastructure, data, cloud, enterprise systems, security, and the backbone of how organizations operate at scale. Dell was evolving from a PC company into a far more diversified technology. That kind of transformation is not built through comfort. It is built through vision and nerve. What makes this so inspiring is that Michael Dell did not build genius. He built it through layers of reinvention. First, he reinvented computer sales. Then he reinvented himself as a CEO, capable of leading a giant company. Then he helped reinvent Dell for a new era of technology. Each phase demanded a different version of him. Story. Rarely the same person who finishes it. Growth requires identity expansion. It requires humility to learn again. It requires maturity to let go of old wins, so you can fight for new ones. There were surely times when the pressure felt enormous, when competition was fierce, when critics were loud, when decisions carried billions of dollars in consequences, when every path had risk. But Michael Dell kept showing a quality that appears again and again in the lives of extraordinary people. Calm. He did not build his reputation through theatrical speeches or dramatic public emotion. His strength was quieter, more measured, more analytical. But underneath that calm was deep determination. He kept working the problem. He kept thinking long term. He kept making the next move. That matters because success does not always wear the same face. Some leaders are loud and fiery. Some are calm and controlled. Some inspire with visible intensity. Others inspire with steadiness. Michael Dell reminds us that you do not need to become someone else to build something extraordinary. You need to understand your own strengths and use them consistently. In his case, that meant strategic thinking, customer focus, discipline, and the courage to make bold decisions without needing constant applause. Another reason Michael Dell's story touches people is because it reflects a truth many dreamers need to hear. Starting early is powerful. Starting perfectly is not required. He did not launch his company from a perfect office with a perfect business plan and a perfect understanding of everything that would come next. He started with what he had. He started where he was. He learned by doing. He adjusted by observing. He improved by staying close to reality. Too many people delay their potential because they want perfect conditions. Michael Dell shows us that momentum often comes to those who begin before they feel fully ready. And let's not overlook the emotional weight of choosing an unconventional path. When you leave behind a respected track, people question you. When you turn down safety, people worry about you. When you build something no one can fully see yet, some people quietly assume you will fail. Michael Dell had to live with that tension. He had to trust what he saw before the world validated it. That is one of the loneliest parts of entrepreneurship. Long before success becomes visible, belief has to become personal. You have to keep going while the evidence is still incomplete. As the years went on, Michael Dell became not only one of the wealthiest men in technology, but also one of the most respected. Yet the wealth is only the outer result. The deeper story is about what created it. Focus, patience, strategic clarity, excellence, and the courage to Money is the headline. Character is the foundation. There is a beautiful lesson in that for anyone building a career, a business, or even a better life. You may not control where you begin. You may not control how quickly others understand you. You may not control how much support you receive in the early days. But you can control whether you stay observant. You can control whether you take responsibility. You can control whether you act on. You can control whether you keep learning when things get hard. Michael Dell's journey also reminds us that success is not only about ambition, it is about service. Dell grew because it offered people something they genuinely valued: better prices, more customized machines, a more direct relationship, solutions that help organizations. The businesses that last are often the ones that stay close to real needs. Michael Dell did not win by building a fantasy. He won by solving problems people actually had. That is why his story still matters. A young man in a dorm room looked at and saw inefficiency where others saw. He trusted his ability to improve the system. He took a risk. He built carefully. He scaled boldly. He faced criticism. He adapted. He reinvented. Long-term success belongs to people who are willing to do more than start. It belongs to people who are willing to keep transforming. So when you think about Michael Dell, do not just think about the billionaire. Think about the student who noticed what others ignored. Think about the young entrepreneur willing to leave certainty behind. Think about the leader willing to rebuild. Think about the businessman who understood. You must keep earning your relevance. If you're watching this during a season of doubt, let this story encourage you. Your beginning does not need to look impressive to become important. Your first step does not need to be huge to become history. Your current limitations do not define your final outcome. What matters is whether you are willing to see clearly, act boldly, stay disciplined, and keep growing into. Michael Dell did not become successful because life handed him a perfect road. He became successful because when he saw opportunity, when he saw inefficiency, he improved it. When the market changed, he adapted. When pressure came, he endured. And when the world assumed the story was already written, he found a way to write a new chapter. That is not just business wisdom, that is life wisdom, and that is why Michael Dell's journey here on Billionaire Success Lessons. If this story inspired you, remember this: not having everything figured out. Sometimes your biggest advantage is being willing to begin, willing to learn, and willing to stay committed long after others lose patience. That is how ordinary beginnings become extraordinary outcomes. That is how vision becomes reality. And that is how Michael Dell turned a legacy that changed the world